Hello everyone, welcome to Diamonds of Craft where I make things. My name is Sarah and I'm back with another collab video. My friend Dolly Mixtures and I wanted to bring back the Creepily Lovesick type collab that I did with Telly Dollies and Catmillion Studio a couple of years ago now. But this time we wanted to invite more participants to join in on the fun. Sadly, Dolly Mixtures couldn't take part in this one, but hopefully next time we will all be working together. Taking part in this collab, we have Lady Dynamite Creates, Telly Dollies, Stitchwick Creations, Catmillion Studio, Starlight Dream Dolls, Doll Afterlife, Lemon Kitten Creations, Fairykin, Steffu Doll, Insanely Creating, and Unbridled Artistry. My idea this time around was to do something completely different, and I managed to end up not doing it. No spoilers, I'll probably do it in the future though, so watch this space. So I went with the next best thing, which some of my followers have already requested, and that is to make Orin from Baldur's Gate 3. She's creepy enough to have a little crush on, I'm sure people do, so let's do it. I am going to use this Frankenstein doll because I like her face shape for this project. First things first, I need to get rid of her hair and take the factory paint off. To do that, you can use acetone or nail varnish with acetone in it. Mine only has 99% acetone, and as you can see, it works just fine. And I want to shrink this head, so I am putting it in a jar of acetone. Next, we have to prepare her body, so that means popping off those bolts and buffing her body down so the paint comes off. This only works with buffing because acetone will melt the plastic. Then I need to map out where her clothes are gonna be. I need to sculpt this onto the doll directly. Her outfit is skin tight and it would be an absolute pain to try and make it out of fabric. Using reference pictures and the mod for Orin's outfit on the actual game, I managed to get something that resembles what she wears. The next job is to sculpt it all on. I am using Milliput to do this because it cures without any baking and adheres to the plastic of the doll fairly well. I went about this in stages, to be honest. First, a base as flat as I can so I can just get the shape of it down. At first, I just put on as much as possible to cover the area that I have drawn on. Then I go back in and try to follow the shapes, scraping bits off to make smoother lines. I then add on some little snakes to raise parts of it and make it uneven again. Just layering them on and trying to blend them into the clay. I do this when the base layer is dry, mind you, so I don't ruin the smooth lines underneath. And to make them even sharper and accurate, I also use a tool just to scrape at the clay. When it was cured, it was easier to get a solid, smooth line. And happily, the clay was still rather soft. Not too soft, but soft enough to let me do this. I thought that the shrinking process didn't work at first. However, after leaving her head to dry for 3 weeks whilst I was on holiday, I came back to a nice little shrunken head. I just need to open up the neck hole a little and trim down the neck peg so her head can fit back on. Nice, nice. When the sculpting on her back was dry, I did the rest of the sculpting in stages. So to save the progress, if I didn't have time or wasn't feeling the sculpting process, I would just do it in little bits. All the while trying to be as neat as possible in the wet sculpting stage, because it obviously is easier to shape when it's still malleable. But of course, doing the same thing over and over, letting the base layer dry and shaping it with tools if need be. No matter how hard I tried to make a sharp line when it was uncured, it just looked much better when I finished it with something sharp. Wow, Orin's really getting to me already. That sounded rather violent. You know what I mean anyway. One of the most difficult things was to try and make everything as symmetrical as possible. She has all these spots and spikes which were a little annoying to add on if I'm honest. But it's all worth it. The detail is the real work here since I'm not physically making any clothing for her. I do really like how it's turning out though. Sculpting this made me appreciate how interesting and unique her design is. And well, Orin's armor is disturbing to say the least. The name of it is Mutilated Carapace. I hope I'm saying that right. And this is the description. Hard, fleshy leather has been derived from a countless slew of victims to form this armor for Baal's fetid chosen. And well, that's what we want it to look like, I guess. I'll get back to that in a moment. I need to take a break from the body and make some of our accessories. I am using nail gel top coat for this actually because it cured faster and easier with my small UV light. All of it was tiny and fiddly and really hard to film, but I came up with ways to make them look convincing enough. I did make the mistake of thinking this would be easy, that it was just a sculpting and painting situation, but my goodness, does she have a lot of accessories. I tried sculpting her dagger, Bloodthirst, entirely from cosclay. I did change up the approach after spending some time trying it with just the clay. I then added hardware to keep it all in place, and that ended up much better. The blade is red, and judging by the reference photos, the hilt is gold. Gold chrome powder to the rescue. I added the netherstone to the wire that went through the middle, and I know it's not exactly the right shape, but it'll do. Now that her body is sculpted and dry, we can paint her. I'm doing base layers, so this is her bluish grey skin first. Then all the armor in red. Now for the part I was most looking forward to, her skin. She has this sort of smoke-like or marbled effect on her skin that moves around. However, we can't have it undulating in real life, so I'm just replicating the effect with watercolor pencils and water. I draw the general shape and add water. Simple. And that looks pretty cool. To finish the gross texture of her armor, I added little beads of UV resin across it, small amounts across some of the planes that look like they overlap, and dots to add to the texture I already added when sculpting. For even finer texture, I just dabbed on thick paint, and it really worked well, so I'm very happy with it. It was really fun to see the sculpt transform from something kind of too smooth looking to what it looks like in the game. I was worried about not being able to sculpt small enough detail, but the little drops of resin were a lifesaver. It also looks really cool and gross that some of it is wet, like it's a brand new edition or something. Then, of course, she needs a wash of dark colour to get into all the recesses. And a healthy dry brushing of a lighter red or orange or yellow to bring out the details on top. Finally, I am onto the face. I need to start with the exact same process of the marbling on the body and just let the water do its thing. I love the effect, and it's probably the most intensive part about her face. The rest of her face is simple. Her eyes are white and her makeup is dark. I did want to give her a bit of a sinister look, so her eyebrows are a little furrowed. Unfortunately, sometimes when the face has a new layer of paint on it, you can actually rub it off if you're not careful enough. Thankfully, it only happened to me where I could cover it with heavy eyeshadow. And she does have a faint hint of an iris. It is much lighter than what I've done here, but I like how mine's turned out. It was actually rather more difficult to draw these as they're just so simple. It took me a few goes to get the right iris correct, but adding the white in the right place does make them stand out a little better. All that's left is hair. Yarn is what I'm going with, and you know the drill if you're a customizer. Painting the head the same color as the hair does hide if you miss any spots. And then I just start gluing the wefts straight on. There's no real need for me to make a wig since the hairstyle is permanent. I did make little extensions with a length of yarn and brushed out yarn. Her hair is so long, I did wonder about how to do it, but I should have used fabric glue to make them because the UHU was just a little bit too solid. This is how it looks anyway. It's not too bad. I had to make all the teeny tiny details off camera because it was just too difficult. But now they're done, all I need to do is position them correctly and secure them in place. It's a headdress, but I can't make it sit right, so I'm just UV resining them to her head. I have to say, it may not be super perfect, but I think it's really worked out on this scale. I added more rings and glued spikes to her hair as well. And I did make the massive spiky thing that she has at the end of her hair. I don't know what that is, but it's there. Oops, bye-bye, dagger. With that, she's all finished. And here is how she turned out. I absolutely love her. I did do a sculpture piece last time, so it seems that I am on brand. Just for size reference, for those of you who are wondering. Carlac is huge. Yeah, I'll try and get some pictures with Carlac and I'll post those on Instagram. Catmelian Studio was delayed with hers, but she is still making a video. She's still part of this collab, so please look forward to her doll when she releases it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. You do not want to know what will happen if you're a dick, so don't be a dick. Like this video if you want, subscribe if you would also want to, and ring my bell. You may as well. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!